Hi, in this video I want to talk about Alexander of Epirus, Molossian, who was the uncle of Alexander the Great and the sister and the brother of Olympia, the wife of Philip. And now he decided to, instead of helping his nephew Alexander the Great with his war against Persia, he decided to fight a war against the southern Italian tribes, the Bruttians and Mesappians and the Lucanians. And he crossed over, and this is how he died. The account comes from Titus Livy, the great Roman historian, from the age of Augustus, of course. Now, when he was invited by the Tarentines into Italy, he received a warning by some sort of priestess to beware of the waters of Acheron and the city of Bandosia, for it was there that the limits of his destiny were fixed. This made him cross over into Italy all the sooner, that he might be as far as possible from the city of Bandosia and the river Acheron, which flows from Molossian into the infernal marshes and finally empties itself into the Thesprotian Gulf. But as often happens in trying to avoid his fate, he rushed upon it. He won many victories over the nationalities of southern Italy, inflicting numerous defeats upon the legions of Bruttium and Lucania. Sipontum from the Apulians. He captured Sipontum. He captured Petontia from the Lucanians, Sipontum from the Apulians, Consentia and Terina from the Bruti, and other cities belonging to Mesappians and Lucanians. He sent 300 noble families to Epirus to be detained there as hostages. The circumstances under which he met his death were these. He had taken up a permanent position on 3 hills not far from the city of Bandosia, which is close to the frontier of the Lucanians and Bruti, in Italy. From this point he made incursions into every part of the enemy's territory, and on these expeditions he had a bodyguard of some 200 Lucanian refugees in whose fidelity he placed confidence, but who, like most of their countrymen, were given to changing their minds as their fortunes changed. Continuous rains had inundated the whole country and prevented 3 divisions of the army from mutually supporting each other. While they were in this condition, 2 other 3 divisions were suddenly attacked in the king's absence and overwhelmed, so the Italians defeated 2/3 of the Epirot army. After annihilating them, the enemy invested the 3rd hill where the king was present in person. The Lucanian refugees managed to communicate with their countrymen and promised, if a safe return were guaranteed to them, to place the king in their hands, alive or dead. Alexander, with his picked force of troops, cut his way with splendid courage through the enemy, and meeting the Lucanian general, slew him after a hand-to-hand fight. Then, getting together those of his men who were scattered in flight, he rode towards the ruins of a bridge which had been carried away by the floods and came into a river. Whilst his men were fording it, with very uncertain footing, a soldier, almost spent by his exertions and fears, cursed the river for its unlucky name and said, "Rightly art thou called Acheros." So when these words fell onto his ear, the king at once recalled to mind the oracular warning, and stopped, doubtful whether to cross or not. Sotimus, one of his personal attendants, asked him why he had hesitated at such a critical moment, and drew his attention to the suspicious movements of the Lucanian refugees who were evidently meditating treachery. The king looked back and saw them coming on in a compact body. He at once drew his sword and spurred his horse through the middle of the river. He had already reached the shallow water on the other side when one of the refugees, some distance away, transfixed him with a javelin. He fell from his horse, and his lifeless body, with the weapon sticking in it, was carried down by the current to that part of the bank where the enemy was stationed. Well, there it was, horribly mutilated. After cutting it through the middle, they sent one half to Consentia and kept the other to make sport of. Whilst they were pelting it at a distance with darts and stones, a solitary woman ventured among the rabble who were showing such incredible brutality and implored them to desist. She told them, amid her tears, that her husband and children were held prisoner by the enemy, and she hoped to ransom them with the king's body, however much it might have been disfigured. This put an end to the outrages. What was left of the limbs was cremated at Consentia by the reverential care of this one woman, and the bones were sent back to Metapontum, and from there were carried on to Epirus, to Cleopatra, Alexander's widow, and Alexander's half-sister, and to Olympias, Alexander's mother. Right, I thought it well to give this brief account of the tragic end of Alexander of Epirus, Molossian, for although fortune kept him from hostilities with Rome, the wars he waged in Italy entitle him a place in this history. So this is the account given by the great Roman Augustan historian Livy about Alexander, the uncle of Alexander the Great. This is a Macedonian light-armed infantryman. And this is what the Macedonian cavalry looked like, the companion Macedonian cavalry, from a real frieze. And this is what the southern Italians looked like. Well, these are in fact Samnites, and the Mesappians, Bruttians and Lucanians was quite similar to these troops.